Get ready for that football show with those fantasy guys.
Hello, welcome to that football show with those fantasy guys.
And we are those fantasy guys.
It is week number 11. Jay has returned from the great West.
San Diego, baby.
Southwest.
Beautiful. Stay classy, San Diego.
Fantastic. Glad you enjoyed yourself, Jay. Let's get right into the picks this week. Actually, let's get into key injuries first. There have been 11 shows this season, 9 winners. Quick math, that's like 99 shows. I still don't know the order of the segments. Let's take a look at the key injuries. They are Jameis Winston, Phillip Rivers, Marcus Mariota, Devontae Freeman, Aaron Jones, Ty Montgomery, Rob Kelly, Sammy Watkins, Doug Baldwin, and Will Fuller. Jay, it's an amazing list this week just because so many players are out already, and it's only Wednesday. Of course, we shoot on Wednesday.
I think the big player on this list that affects 2 teams in your league is Devontae Freeman, because you are losing. You might have drafted him as a number 1 back, more performing as a late 1, early 2 back, but the person that has Tevin Coleman that may have been using him for a flex is now getting a late 1, early 2 back. Greatly improves one team, really hurts another team. That's the one that stands out to me.
With that, let's move right into the hunt for Red October. Of course, we are into November, so it should be the hunt for Red November. But that doesn't make sense.
Finding the ultimate sub.
Thank you very much. Jay, last week Rich was in your seat, and why don't you, I'm sorry, we got to talk about the teams that are on a bye first. Like I said,
it is like your first week.
I'm telling you, it's like I said, 11 shows, 9 years, 99 shows. Doesn't really add up, does it? The Panthers, the Colts, the Jets, and the 49ers. Jay, who's on the list?
Well, the one that really jumps out to me, the one that you got, whether it's a free agent pickup, you got him in a throw-in or a trade. Devin Funchess is a guy who has the needle pointed in the right direction at the exact right time. Had a great week last week. Playing on Thursday night. Going to have 10 days off to get acclimated to the number 1 receiver spot, and he's on a bye. It really kind of hurt you. But for the rest of the season, you got a stud.
Well, let's hope so if you're a Funchess owner. Now, let's take a look at last week's pick. Jay, Rich was in your seat and made the pick, so you have to live with him. Where did Rich go last week?
Last week, Rich said that you might want to start Damian Williams. He had 9 carries for 19 yards, 2 receptions for 20 yards, and I'm pretty sure the other guy got a touchdown.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake had like 85 yards and a touchdown. It came mostly on one play. I will tell you, of the 2 backs, Williams looks like the more physical runner. But for some reason, it's just not working out for him.
I just hate the way, if I had one of these guys, I would hate the way they're splitting time. Give me one or the other so I know if I play them or if I don't.
Yeah.
You're really stuck in no man's land with these 2 right now.
Speaking of not playing people, that's what you should have done with my pick last week. I went with Ryan Fitzpatrick in what I thought was going to be a good matchup against the New York Jets. He was 17 of 34 for 187, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and that just is icky. He was terrible. The Tampa Bay never really got off the ball very well. He had trouble finding receivers down the field. He was without Mike Evans.
That is a huge factor.
I understand it's a huge factor, but you still have Deshaun Jackson. You've still got the tight end there, Cameron Brate. And you've got,
O.J. Howard.
Yeah, O.J. Howard.
Doug or not.
And yeah, exactly. Doug Martin catching the ball out of the backfield sometimes. I just thought he was going to have a better day. Just didn't pan out.
Hey, all I got to say, Bucks got the win.
There you go, which is all that matters in real football. Jay, what are you going to do on your first time back here since your absence?
You like to talk about, in fantasy football, people remember the last thing that they saw. Mm-hmm. And the last thing that everybody saw with Austin Eckler was a lost fumble that cost them the game. Now, the thing to remember is, it was crunch time. They were running out the clock to win the game. And who was in the game? Eckler, not Melvin Gordon.
For the second week
the
this
starter.
season.
Exactly. And this week, they are going into Buffalo, who gave up not 1, not 2, not 3, 4, 5, but 6 touchdowns to 3 different
Ridiculous.
running backs
Ridiculous.
and Drew Brees, who is not known as a
And we're
running
gonna
quarterback.
see that later.
So what I'm going to say is Eckler is going to have every opportunity, both the opportunity of the playing time that he has carved out in the past couple of weeks and the opportunity of the defense that Buffalo Bills portrayed last week, probably going to carry over this week. I think Eckler is in line. Not for a number 1 back, but if you have a 2 that's on a bye, if you have Carlos Hyde, if you have a flex position you need to fill, you can put this guy in there with relative confidence that you are going to have the opportunity to get points and a nice defense to get those points against.
Yeah, and the 2 touchdowns last week is going to make him a hot name off the wire. But hopefully, like you said, people will remember the fumble at the end of the game. That probably cost them the game. But it's hard to argue with the matchup after last week. The Bills just look like they got caught off guard. And the rushing touchdowns and the rushing yards they allowed, it was like 300 yards rushing.
Yeah, just like 3 different backs.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Just ridiculous. So I agree. The matchup is there. The opportunity is there. If Eckler is there and you can get your hands on him, he's a good way to go this week. Jay, if you can't get your hands on Eckler, I'm going to give you a good backup pick, if you will. Green Bay has been the place where fantasy football has gone to die this season. They've lost Aaron Rodgers and a bevy of wide receivers at different points during the season. Their starting running back, Montgomery, to start the season, had a monster week 1, a good week 2, then broke his ribs and was out after that. So they turned to Aaron Jones to carry the mail. And he did until last week when he hurt, and I think he's out with an MCL for the rest of the season. And that brings us to Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is now the starting running back for the Green Bay Packers, owned in just 10% of leagues, and understandably so. He has 31 carries for 101 yards and that touchdown right there, and has some out of the backfield catch ability as well. Montgomery is probably not going to play this week with the ribs, so that means Williams is in line for 20-plus touches against a Ravens defense that is allowing 125 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground. Now, I say 20 touches, Jay. That's pretty specific, and that's a lot of touches for a football player, but let me tell you where I came up with that. Last week, with Aaron Jones starting and Montgomery playing, Williams still got 20 touches with the other 2 mouths to feed. Without those 2, I think he's going to see at least those 20. What he does with them is another question, but he has a good matchup and a good opportunity. So like you just spoke about, good matchup, good opportunity equals a good start for your football team. If you miss on Eckler, or if he's owned, you can go out and you can add Jamal Williams and enjoy a flex running back that's going to see the ball a ton. Again, what he does with them against a good matchup is up to him and the Packers, but the opportunity and the matchup are there. And the reason why I'm stressing that is because that is something that we talk about all season long, and you can use it going forward whether you have us in your ear or not.
And what I like about this pick, I agree this is a great pick. What I like about it is both these backs that are on this team this year, Aaron Jones and Williams, were both drafted this year. Yeah. They drafted Williams first.
Right.
How Aaron Jones jumped him in the order when he did, I don't really know. But the point is, they put so much time and effort into the draft, they like this guy better than the guy that has already produced. So I'm thinking that that is your floor at what you got. If from the Aaron Jones owners, I think that's the floor on this guy moving forward.
I see what you're saying. So what you're saying is, just to sum that up, is that Aaron Jones is at least, or I'm sorry, Williams is at least the back that Jones is, because he went first.
That's what I'm thinking.
So the point is that if you need 1 back or 2 backs, you can run out, you can add those guys, and you can start them right up. Let's move on to tough sits.
Sit down, Waldo.
Jay, as I mentioned, Rich was sitting in your seat last week, so you are partially responsible for his picks. Where'd Rich go last week?
Rich took Phillip, Running Wild Rivers. He had 21 completions on 37 attempts, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Not bad. You certainly could have done worse.
You could have done worse. You could have started Ryan Fitzpatrick, which was worse. But I will tell you that the matchup was right for sitting Phillip Rivers, and he did something last week that no other quarterback has done this week. he threw 2 touchdowns on that Jacksonville defense.
And amazingly enough, the future Hall of really good quarterback was able to squeeze a loss out of that.
Fantastic, absolutely. Well, it was because of Eckler's fumble.
Must have been.
Jay, last week I told you to sit down Drew Brees.
Preach.
And I very specifically said Drew Brees will have 1 touchdown in this game. This is the touchdown that he had in this game. It's not how I expected it to come, yet the numbers were there. Brees was 18 of 25 for 184 yards, no passing touchdowns, did get that rushing touchdown. Jay, I told everyone last week that the Saints of 2017 are not your father's Saints. They're not the same team anymore. They don't throw the ball 50 times a game. They don't rely on Drew Brees to pass for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. They run the ball, they play defense, and they take the ball away on defense.
Who is this team?
They rely on Drew Brees to be an accurate passer, which he has been with a 75% completion rating. But the touchdowns and the yards are just not there for Drew Brees to carry your fantasy football team this year. However, they're looking like one of the better teams in the NFC because of the way they're playing football this year. It doesn't always correlate. Good NFL football doesn't always correlate to good fantasy football. And you're seeing that with the Saints at the quarterback and wide receiver position. The running back position, forget about it.
And I'm really excited that you said that, because the next guy you talk about is going to be a perfect example of good fantasy and good NFL football meshing together perfectly. Stay tuned.
A little bit of foreshadowing there. Jay, where are you going this week for the tough set?
This week, I'm going right at you, Dak Prescott. He's owned in 100% of leagues, and he's going against the red-hot Philadelphia Eagles. It's time to acknowledge a huge mistake that was made last year, and we are seeing it proven out right before our eyes. Ezekiel Elliott should have won the Rookie of the Year, not Dak Prescott. Zeke is the engine of the Cowboys offense. The offense goes through Zeke, and without Zeke, Dak looks like a pretty pedestrian quarterback. Even with Dez Bryant and Jason Witten, one absolute Hall of Famer in Jason Witten, one potential Hall of Famer in Dez Bryant. Who knows where what's going to happen moving forward? But all I know is Dak Prescott has 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games, and Ezekiel is only going to get out of 1 of them. So if things keep going at that rate, he might have negative touchdowns this week. So if you have any other quarterback, you need to play any other quarterback until you see Dak Prescott perform as a fantasy football relevant quarterback without Zeke Elliott. Until further notice, you cannot start Dak Prescott. And by the way, on the way over to shooting this, Ezekiel Elliott gave up his the appeal, so he is sitting for 5 more games.
He's out for 5 games. So Jay, those are pretty strong words for the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott owners, who I'm sure are looking forward to starting him in a game where the over-under has got to be 50
It's got to be
points.
wicked high. They're going to be chasing points the whole game. I think it's going to be a little bit like last week where they're chasing points and the left tackle is going to be a turnstile. Dak might not even make it out of the game.
Fantastic. Well, like I said, strong words. We'll have to tune in next week and see how that worked out for you. Jay, I'm going to go ahead and sit down Todd Gurley this week.
No, we've been talking about this all year.
This is the week.
This is the week. You've been saying it all year.
I was right the last time. On the season, he has 172 rushes for 754 yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, 3 receiving touchdowns.
Stats.
He has stud written all over him.
Best back in the league.
But this week, the LA Rams travel to the great Midwest, and they're going to take on the Minnesota Vikings and their number 3 ranked pass defense. They're allowing just over 80 yards per game on the ground and only 5 touchdowns on the season. This may be the toughest test for the Rams yet. This is going to be a show-me game for both teams. We just talked about how good the New Orleans Saints are. I think that the Saints, the Philadelphia Eagles, the LA Rams, and the Minnesota Vikings are the top 4 teams in the NFC.
Yep.
This game, pay very close attention to what happens on Sunday, because this could be a playoff preview. And I think that the Minnesota Vikings have the talent on defense to stuff Todd Gurley and put it on Goff's shoulders. And I don't know if Goff can get it done against this secondary. This might be a game where you see Minnesota win 21-17. This could be an all-time low score for the Rams. I mean, excuse me, the Rams.
Rams. Yep.
I got confused because of LA. It could be an all-time low score for this season for the Rams. However, they also could blow out the Minnesota Vikings. As I said, this is a playoff matchup in week number 11 in the regular season. This is going to be a fun game to watch, but I just don't trust Gurley against that tough running defense.
And you've been talking about Todd Gurley's demise literally since week 1, and I've been scoffing at you ever since. You've sat him. Yeah. You've sold high on him. Yeah. You've done it all. Everything has been gone in your face. One thing I do agree with, this could be a 21-17 game, or the Rams could blow them out. Either way, Gurley's getting his. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you. I'm not feeling it this week.
You haven't been feeling it all year.
I'm sitting there. It's a personal thing. This is the week, though. This is the week it comes to fruition. Let's move on to Wall Street. Who do you have on the big board today?
This week I'm going with one of the final buy lows that you can, and you better buy low on him while you can, because he is rounding into form. He's rounding into shape to be a playoff, fantasy football playoff beast. I'm talking about Josh Doctson with Terrell Pryor in the rearview mirror. Nobody even cares about him. Josh Doctson is trending in the right direction with receptions of 5, 3, 5, and 7. In the last 4 weeks, he's getting red zone targets. He's getting game-winning catches like this. This guy's needle is pointing absolutely straight up, and you want to get your hands on this guy because in the fantasy playoffs, he's at worst a starting flex player, if not a number 2 receiver. He might round into a number 1. I know that's pushing it, but really at this point in time, with what we've seen, if I had to choose between Julio Jones and Josh Doctson, I would be starting Josh Doctson.
Whoa.
What we've seen this year to
Talk
this
about
point,
strong words.
Well, Julio Jones has a chance to turn that around before the playoffs come. But if the playoffs come and their numbers are on par with what they are now, one of them is pointing this way and one of them is flatlining.
Wow. Those are strong words. What I will say about your pick is that the Washington Redskins have just now officially lost Kelly for the year. They weren't running the ball well with Kelly, without Kelly. They might abandon the run altogether and just pass for the rest of the season. That can only mean good things for Doctson, who is definitely the number 1 wide receiver on that team. It's just, they just need to, for some reason, they're having trouble passing to the wide receivers. But as you said, the last 4 weeks, that's starting to come on. It's starting to develop, and they're starting to spread the ball around more in Washington. I like the pick.
Okay, bring us your sell high final on Todd Gurley.
Sell high on Todd Gurley. Just do it. Just get rid of him. Listen, here's the thing. So we usually don't talk too much about our fantasy teams. So we're in 2 leagues together, and in one of them I was struggling. My season was over. It's a keeper league. I traded away my entire team, and I've gone 4-0 since, and I'm in the playoffs. Firmly in the playoffs. So listen, from week to week, there are better options on the wire. It's just having the ability to see the matchup, to see the opportunity.
And pull the trigger.
That's it, to pull the trigger. Sometimes it's hard to do, like with tough sits. Sit down, Todd Gurley, this week. Jay, I'm going to go buy low on a tight end. The tight end landscape is uneven, to say the least. Even the best tight ends aren't producing. And there is a guy out there who is a stud, number 1 tight end available in a lot of leagues. It's Greg Olsen. He's been hurt for most of the season. They're on a bye this week, but he's about to come back, and all this guy is going to do for the Panthers is catch touchdowns. They lost Benjamin Watson. Calvin
Benjamin.
Calvin Benjamin, thank you, who was their end zone target. They just lost Curtis Samuel for the season, and that leaves a wide open number 2 receiver spot for Greg Olsen coming back next week. Go out, add Greg Olsen for your playoff push and championship push, and you'll be glad you did if you missed on any of the other tight ends we talked about this year.
I love this pick. I love this pick for a number of reasons. Number 1, you're not getting a number 2 option. You might get the number 1 option by the time things are all things are said and done. Number 2, like you said, the landscape of the tight end is flat. If you can get somebody for nothing. And number 3, the chance to get him now, like you said, he's on a bye
He's
week.
on a bye.
Nobody is looking at him right now. He hasn't come back.
Especially during this last couple of weeks, this playoff push. Nobody wants to waste a roster spot on a guy on a bye, a guy that's hurt. Who knows what he's going to do when he comes back? You want a guy who's going to give you production right now, and everybody's scrambling to find those players. So, sorry to interrupt you.
No, I love this pick.
Fantastic. Nothing else to say about that. Jay, let's move on to weekly leagues. It's good to have you back and mastering this segment. Tell us where you're going with your weekly league.
Yeah, what I like to do with the weekly leagues is give you one player that you can count on. Whether or not you have to pay a priority price for him, or someone that's going to get you numbers at a cheap price so you can build the team around him. But what I'm going to say this year, we're coming full circle. We started this year in the preseason talking about Kareem Hunt and what he was going to be doing for the Kansas City Chiefs in August. Like you said, I was telling you about Kareem Hunt. And he exploded. He's cooled off a little bit. He's coming off a bye week. I think Andy Reid is going to reevaluate, reassess. I think their offense is a little gimmicky, and I think they need to realize that those gimmicks only work as long as Kareem Hunt is the engine that is driving the team. So I am playing Kareem Hunt this week. I am looking at him blowing up the New York Giants.
Yeah, it's a defense that's just completely given up.
I think he is going to blow. I'm looking at 150 yards and 2 to 3 touchdowns. So you are going to pay a premium for him, but you're going to be able to build a team around 45, 50 points, however those weekly leagues add up, depends on which one you're in. You're going to have so many points, you're going to be able to stash your team right around.
So we are approaching the end of the fantasy season, and here's what I'll say about Kareem Hunt. This is going to be a week where it's really going to determine the type of player he is. He came out on fire, but he's a rookie. This is a long season. The bye week came at a perfect time for him to get rested up. If he comes out of this shoot out of the bye week on fire like he did in week 1, this guy could propel you to a fantasy championship by himself. If he comes out and he falters, then maybe the season's too long for him as a rookie, and maybe you're going to have to find some help otherwise. So either way, even if you're not a Kareem Hunt owner, again, I find this game a very interesting one on the ticket this week because I want to see what Kareem Hunt does coming out of the bye week, especially now that teams are starting to stack up on him.
Oh, absolutely. And like you just said, for me, it's huge. I am a Kareem Hunt owner in one of my leagues. Rolling the dice for the playoffs right here. Coming at you. Get Kareem Hunt in your weekly league.
Fantastic. Jay, that's all the time we have for today's episode. If you have a Facebook question, please send it to us on Facebook. Search TFS and look for the shield. This has been That Football Show with those fantasy guys.
We are those fantasy guys.